ScreamingPeach.com.
I am walking home. I just dropped my car off at the mechanic because I had a flat tire, and I've actually had a flat tire I've been driving on a donut for weeks. I spoke to the mechanic the day I got the flat tire. My hair's kind of wet, but it's basically see-through anyway. And he said, you can actually drive on a donut longer than they claim. I did go see him like 2 weeks ago to make sure that it was inflated enough, because I was in the middle of moving and I just didn't have the time to take my car to the mechanic in the middle of all that. And then, things have been hectic, so I'm walking home. Okay, so I'm walking home and I'm watching Roberta Glass on YouTube. She's gonna stream Lindsay Clancy trial day 16. I have some meetings. I have a meeting at 11 and a meeting at 12, which I literally thought was Thursday. But when I logged in to get my meeting info, I saw that the guy who was supposed to schedule it for Thursday made it Wednesday. So I need to confirm that's what he meant to do. But anyway, so last night I did a video and I was talking a little bit about my own personal experience as a mom. And I was saying, my mom, she still works full time. Like, she retired and then she got a full-time job. And my sister, so when my first kid was born, my sister's kids were 7 and 3.5. And right after my first son was born, she was basically, right before, because I gave birth at her apartment on purpose. And that would have never happened if her husband was still there. So right when I was having my first baby, her and her husband were divorcing. And so my sister was a working mom of 2 little ones. So she just did not have the time to do babysitting for me. And my brother had little babies and he's working full time. I ended up babysitting my brother's kids for 3 years. But later, like when I was working at the flower shop, there was a while where I was having the kids come with me to work. But then it just got, 2020 came. And so there was a time when my sister would actually come and get the kids for me in the morning and keep them at her house for the afternoon a couple times a week so that I could work without having my kids there. So she really did step up and help me at times. Just when I was listening back to my video yesterday, I was like, wait, I didn't even mention all that stuff. And so I said I didn't have a huge support system or network, but, I do have some help. And now my kids can be home by themselves, or they can even go out by themselves. And of course, I still have to pick them up. Anyway, Lindsay Clancy, day 16. My whole point was that when you have a huge support system of helpers and you're struggling. You know, one of the things that they're trying to claim in the defense, part of the defense argument, and even Pat's mother said it on the stand yesterday, Lindsay was begging for help. My issue with this claim is that begging for help while simultaneously refusing help really doesn't jive. Like I was saying also yesterday, my baby's daddy's mother, she was willing to watch my kids once a week for a few hours, but I had to bring them to her house. So also, like Patrick's mother said yesterday, we decided that it was for the best if the kids stay in their own home with their own stuff. Okay, I see sense in that, but you also, when she was asked, well, did you go and stay at their house? No. And then she fucking said her parents would come and stay at the house. Okay, great. What about you? I'm gonna go this way. What does them staying at the house have to do with what you do? You know, like, I don't know, it just sounded like a very hands-off, you know. And then when the prosecution was like, are you aware that Lindsay told the therapist that you didn't watch the kids? She was like, I did watch the kids. She said, well, are you aware that that's what Lindsay told the therapist? She said, I wasn't aware of that. Were you aware that she told the therapist that she wasn't that close to you, to the in-laws, and that you guys, and that she didn't want you guys babysitting, but you guys didn't complain about it? Oh, I wasn't aware. Some people have said the reason why the mothers, Patrick's mother and Lindsay Clancy's mother, why they won't speak up for the kids, and why, like, it's just crazy, but there's civil lawsuits against the doctors, maybe against the hospitals, I don't know, and that they don't want to say anything in the criminal trial against Lindsay that make it seem like Lindsay wasn't as bad as she's making it, or that she had the help that she needed. That's what I'm saying. Like, okay, like my kid's grandma, she wanted me to bring the kids to her house because she wanted her husband, my kid's grandpa, to be able to be there, help out, even though he was in a wheelchair. He could still help out in some ways. And the most importantly was so that, you know, he could be a part of this weekly babysitting. And was it more inconvenient for me? Sure. But at the same time, it allowed me to go to therapy. Oh my God, look at that. I was able to go food shopping, have a couple hours to myself. My point is, when you are desperate for help, when you're begging for help, and you have people willing to help you, however, maybe in a somewhat limited capacity, you take the fucking help. When you're desperate for help because you're going crazy, you get therapy. You don't just go get drug after drug after drug and then be like, they only gave me drugs. No, bitch, you got drugs. Yes, they prescribed it to you, But you did not go to the dozens of types of places where you could get therapy without drugs. You're a labor and delivery nurse. You're going to tell me you don't know about meditation? You don't know about art therapy, dance therapy, sound therapy, talk therapy. You don't know about behavioral therapy, cognitive therapy. You don't know about all these ways that you could get help. She had people willing to babysit. She had the father working from the home. She had a nanny she could have kept on. She had nurses who were friends and colleagues. And the idea that she was crying out for help, begging for help, and nobody was listening is just not aligned with the reality of the evidence that they put on. But I think that she's going to get a hung jury, or maybe even not guilty by reason of insanity. I don't think 12 people will find her guilty. I don't think 12 people will find her not guilty. I also think that her crying, her so-called crying, her tearless crying, and shoulder shaking, and covering her face, and this fake-ass sound is just that. Fake. I am an incredibly sensitive person. I cry at commercials. I can be brought to tears within 2 seconds. I see somebody emotional. What are these? What is this? There's a tree outside my house. I get so emotional so fast over the smallest things. Sincerity really, really gets me. And when I'm listening to someone crying and nothing is evoked inside of me, that's very telling. As somebody who is ultra sensitive to emotions and incredibly responsive, I should say, emotionally responsive to emotion, I feel like I have a strong sensor that says this person's emotions are truly genuine. It's pulling on my heartstrings instantly. And when I'm sitting there listening to somebody so-called crying, and I'm just like, no, this is coming across as a bad acting job. It says a lot to me. Of course, I'm not 100% always correct, but some people, even Roberta Glass was like, I think body language is bullshit. Body language is something that everybody uses. Everybody reads body language subconsciously. It's literally a part of our human existence that you can read people's body language. You might not understand exactly why you feel something is off, or why you get teary-eyed, or why you don't get teary-eyed, and all those times when there's some kind of criminal and we see their like Chris Watts and Jodi Arias, people like that, Casey Anthony. When you see people pretending that they're sad about something, you can tell. You can fucking tell. And I can tell that bitch was faking. She was faking. Okay? Absolutely. It's performative. It's for the cameras. It's for the jury. And I'm hoping that being right there in the same room with her and watching her for all these days, weeks, that they are going to see through. They are going to see through her bullshit. That is my hope and wish. And while I don't think that the justice system is just, and I don't agree that the prison systems should be as awful as they are, and I do believe and know that a huge part of our prison system is actually just to enslave people for unpaid labor. But despite all of those truths, the fact of the matter is that Lindsay Clancy murdered her 3 children, her 3 innocent children, when she had a wealth of help available to her. And I believe that they're lying when they say she was turned away from the crisis hotline. I have called, not because I wanted to unalive myself, but because there were a handful of times where the stress of being a single mom and my kids just absolutely not listening and arguing back with me, and there have been like 3 times where the situation escalated to the point where I was just like, I don't know what to do. I need help. I need help. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. And I'm just like, I just need an adult who can help calm me down. I need to speak to somebody. And so I called. And I said, I am not, I'm not thinking about unaliving myself, but I am having a mental fucking crisis and I need help. And each time they helped me. They spoke to me at length. They listened to me. They gave me resources to call locally. And it just makes absolutely no sense and doesn't sound believable that she would call a crisis or suicide hotline and be turned away. And supposedly being turned away from this inpatient place. My understanding from the evidence is that she said she wanted to go to taper off of the medication, but she already had a taper schedule. And they said, that is not what we do. That's not our specialty. We are a suicide intervention crisis center, not a medication taper center. And so, but they gave her another resource. Again, it's like, how are you mad at a place because they don't do what you want them to do, and then you're going to blame them for rejecting you? Like, that makes no sense. Like, if I went into a restaurant and I'm like, do you have vegan options? And they say no. I mean, yeah, I can get mad and I could try to sue them and say, I came for vegan options and I was turned away. But that's not what they sell there. They have a right to not sell that stuff there. And, it's just like a center or a clinic. If they are set up to accept certain kind of patients for certain kind of treatment, and then you come in with a different issue, how does it make sense that they should accept you when that's not what they do? Anyway, now I've got to get to work, and I will see you later. Bye.
GetLoveDreamingBeach.com